evening, all of you, and thank you for joining us today for this important webinar. Due to the lockdown, there has been a huge increase in online transactions and contactless payments. But at the same time, it's also important that we learn how to maintain a safe online presence. So before I request Yogesh sir to take over, just give me a couple of minutes to introduce Money Life Foundation. We are a 10-year-old non-profit, and our primary goal is to educate citizens and to help them become more financially literate while also taking up matters that affect consumers. So, just introducing Yogesh sir. Yogesh Sapkale is the deputy editor of Money Life, and he writes on several subjects, including banking, finance, regulations, technology, and he also has a weekly tech column for Money Life magazine. Along with that, he also anchors the credit and legal helpline of Money Life Foundation. So, without taking too much of your time, let me just share a few ground rules for the benefit of all of us present on the call. We've kept all of you on mute during the session so that all of you involved can just listen to the speaker, and we'll unmute you during the Q&A. For optimal viewing, I request you to keep the webinar on speaker view. This meeting will be recorded and will also be uploaded on our YouTube channel, Money Life TV. So during the Q&A, if you wish to ask us any question, then you can use the raise hand buttons option available in Zoom. So that's it from my end. Yogesh sir, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Arvind. That was a wonderful introduction. Okay, so let me start with my sharing my presentation with you. Basically, when we say online or the internet, so we have to understand that the internet was not designed for security. It was designed for sharing information from either, and it was never designed for the security purpose. So inherently, it is insecure, as everything is hackable. It can be hacked. And in addition, all your personal information is freely available on the internet, the other side of internet that we call as dark web. So we have to be very careful while dealing, especially for financial transaction over the internet. So basically, digital transaction involves money and financial transactions. So today's session I had divided in 3 parts. So first we'll go through the basics of security in digital transaction or financial transaction. The second part we'll know different type of online frauds that are taking place everywhere. And in the end, we'll understand the mechanism that is available for victims of digital or online financial fraud and how they can get justice from this mechanism. So before start, the first basic rule of any financial transaction is to understand the difference between a domain and URL. So it is very important. For example, I've given you an example of http n.wikipedia.org. So this is an URL, and the web address is that is the URL or web address, and the wikipedia.org is the domain name. So give you another example. Let's say my name is Yogesh Sapkale. So Yogesh Sapkale, in Yogesh Sapkale is my web address, but Sapkale is my domain name. So you understand what exactly I'm trying to say. Okay. And the same thing applies to the emails as well. Authentic emails from Facebook, Google, it will look like xyz.@facebook.com and not xyz@facebook.iampeg.com, that kind of thing. So you should understand the difference between an URL address or an email address, or how it can be genuine or whether it is a fake one. Second thing, financial transaction is every URL must have the HTTPS, that is an extra S before that. That denotes the extra security. So what happens if you don't use that extra S is when you transfer your data is transferred from HTTP protocol. Let's say you are doing a financial transaction, you are sending somebody from an HTTP website, so that your password or your account number that can be visible by a hacker or somebody who is in the pipeline, he can easily see that. But at the same time, if you use an HTTPS protocol, then the hacker may not see your password or your account details. So that is the security. At the same time, there is one more icon. So if you check the URL, you'll find that icon on the HTTPS before the HTTPS. So that lock icon provides you an extra security. It's a security level, and if you click on that lock icon, you can see the website security certificate after clicking there. But remember, HTTPS is must for every financial transaction. If you are using laptop or PC, on mobile app, they have their own protocol. You don't need to worry about that. You don't need to think about the HTTPS protocol on the mobile handset or the mobile app. I'm talking about mobile app, not mobile handset. and about mobile apps, there is no need. Okay. So with the mobile banking part, mobile banking at the same time is the this applies to the transaction through mobile apps. So first rule is use authentic app only. So if you are dealing with your State Bank of India, so download State Bank of India's authentic app only, and not any third party app that can provide you it is across your bank account. So don't do that. If your bank account in SBI, then Union Bank or maybe National Bank, please download and use each bank's separate authentic app from their from the Google Play Store, Apple Play Store, whatever it is. You always use a secure connection. So you have to avoid public Wi-Fi, or anybody who says that I will give you a free Wi-Fi. You have to say no, no, boss. Sorry. For financial transactions, no free Wi-Fi or no free network. Use your own secured network. Don't store that MPIN, that mobile that your bank gives you for login through the mobile app. So don't share that MPIN or your login ID on the device. Don't store it on your mobile devices. Many people are lazy and feel that every time I have to punch in. So that is a good practice actually. So don't store it there on the mobile device. Keep your log. It goes without saying. Use a good quality of antivirus and anti-malware app. And by good I mean good quality which has got a good rate on Play Store. Not good doesn't mean that you have to pay for it. It's not that. You use good app that are available there with good rating, good reviews. Some mobile apps allow login fingerprint or the transaction through fingerprint, but I'm not comfortable with this idea, and I would prefer MPIN to use, and that MPIN also should have the maximum number of digits, so that gives an extra security. Now we come to the online shopping part. Here I will suggest you shop only with the reputed sites. Avoid impulse buying. Impulse, I'll say that if you see any offer on the mobile app or any shopping site, don't jump into that. If you need something, then keep that thing in your bookmark, that thing, or put it in the wish list. So observe it for a few days, and when you think the price is right or the opportunity is right, then only buy it. Don't do impulse buying. And never share data over email or phone on the shopping site, any shopping site. If possible, use cash on delivery. It will save you a lot of troubles. But nowadays, all the reputed sites or portals, they are become very savvy and they track everything. So there is nothing much to worry on the on delivery part. But still, if you are not sure, then go for the cash on delivery. Then it goes without saying that you have to preserve all transaction records of your dealing. Use good antivirus and anti-spyware, as I had already told you, and keep your browser updated and secure. So if you put it on automatic update, so it will automatically update your mobile app, browser, whatever you are using for the online shopping. Now, in financial transaction, if somebody sends you and says, okay, this is the link and you should click it or click on this so that you can complete your transaction. So I will do that. Unless and until you had initiated the transaction. Let's say I am transferring money to Arvind. So unless and until I'm transferring money to Arvind, then Arvind needs to reciprocate by clicking on the link, and I send him the link, then only he can click on it. Otherwise, no, strict no. And specifically short URLs like that bit.ly. So these short URLs, never use any short URLs in financial transaction, because you don't know what exactly is behind that URL. So avoid that. Password security. Password security is an important aspect in digital or online transactions. So I will just ask you a few questions. So do you share your passwords? Do you write down passwords? Do you use the same password everywhere? There are many people who write down their secret code or PIN on a piece of paper and keep it next to the credit or debit card. And some smart people even write the PIN, on the reverse of the card. I mean, the backside there is this place for the signature, so they write it there. So in this case, what you come? So this is how you will turn out. So I would request, I will urge everybody, do not become a bakra. And if you are using all these methods, writing down your passwords, sharing it with somebody, then forget about software or mobile apps. You're a security expert. Even the God cannot protect such people. You should create passwords and codes or things that are hard to guess but easy to remember only for you and not for the other persons. So here I am just sharing one example. So I had used only Katappa. Katappa passwords, and this is a website on the internet. You can go and check it anytime. Password checker online domain tools.com. So I just put Katappa. So, and there is one more. I had just added 123 in the Katappa password, and in Katappa I had just made some letters in capital and some letters are in small. So what difference does it make? So when I use simple Katappa, so a medium-sized botnet can crack it within 0 seconds. I mean, it will instantly crack it. At the same time, when I'm using Katappa with some letters inserted in that 123 kind of thing and changing the capital letters or small letter, so the cracking time for a medium-sized botnet would be about 2 hours. But the question is then what is the 100% safe and secure and good kind of password? So I'm using the same kind of setup. Let's see what happens. So here, instead of using a simple word, I had used a paraphrase. Katappa ne Bahubali ko kyun mara? So that paraphrase I had converted into a password that you can see there on the screen. And if you see below, so everything is a green. So whether the password is right, I had used numbers, I had used letters, I had uppercase letters, I used lowercase letters, there is a symbols, then the character set is quite good. And this is not among the top 10,000 password commonly used. And how much time it will take to crack? So, I mean, the medium-sized botnet will take around almost 143 billion years to crack this password. So that is the type of security you should seek in your password. Okay.
Yogesh sir,
If
just
you
a
want,
request, if you can keep the mic a little closer to you. I think a couple of people are not able to hear. Sorry to interrupt you.
oh, okay, no issues. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you now.
Okay, fine. So if you want on passwords, if you want to learn more, then you can go to our website, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/moneylife.tv, and you'll see how passwords can be created. So the same way you change the password, you can change the PIN for your ATM or credit card. So this is the dialer that is available on everybody's mobile. So in the if you see there are some letters and some digits. So use that same thing here also. So I'm using here a passphrase that Moneylife Foundation the right thing to do. So using that simple passphrase that can be remembered by me anytime whenever I see my ATM card. So I just use that passphrase. I had chosen the first letters of this phrase. That's a Moneylife Foundation, right thing and right thing. So it becomes 678. That is my PIN for my credit card or debit card or ATM card, whatever it is. So this way you can change PIN of your plastic card and change it regularly. At the same time, if you add 0 and 1 in between somewhere, so it will add spice to your number, or it will become more secure and more safe. But never use the 2 digits at the beginning, that the 0 and 1. Don't use 0 and 1 at the beginning or end of your PIN. So otherwise it becomes very easy to guess. So online frauds, we come to the second part. So in online fraud, there are 6 types of fraud. So first fraud is the request money fraud. So people will request you money. Then they will ask you to scan QR code or receive money fraud. That is called as. Third one is payment fraud. They will ask you to download some third-party application, and that way they will siphon off money from your account. Then debit or credit card or the top-up fraud. So they will say that I'm calling from your bank or RBI or AI, whatever it is, and I'll do something with your credit card if you don't do this kind of thing. So there is one more, that's the social engineering fraud. And the last one is the SIM swap card. So these are the 6 frauds. So, but remember, in all these matters, the fraudster may not ask you to directly transfer the money. All he will request you to send money or share your OTP or share your card details or your entire name written on the card and other kind of things. So they will be very polite. They will not be harsh. So they will not be like a bhai. आपके सर पे गन रखा है और आपको डिटेल मांग रहा है. They will not talk like that. They will be very polite. When I talk about this बंदूक रखेगा, तो दिस इज द प्लेस जामताड़ा जहां का एक फोन कॉल लोगों को कंगना देता है. यू माइट हैव सीन दिस series on Netflix. Jamtara, I mean, it is carved out from the Dumka district in Jharkhand, and it is located near Dhanbad, that coal mine. So in Santhali, the language that is spoken in Jamtara is basically near to West Bengal, more than Jharkhand. So it's on the border of West Bengal and Jharkhand. And there people speak the Santhali language. So संथाली भाषा में जामा का मतलब होता है सांप, that is snake, and ताड़ का मतलब होता है आवाज. So Jamtada means सांपों का आवाज, and unfortunately it is coming out true in other sense. So most offenses are committed by these youngsters, young uneducated boys operating from the Jamtara and surrounding areas. Now you'll ask why this is a small place, and so you may ask why police are not acting upon the complaints. So how many police? I mean, in fact, I remember one very senior police officer from the economic offenses wing told us in somewhere in 2015 that police from 22 states have visited Jamtada, but couldn't do anything. It's quite simple. The local administration in Jamtada, the police, the politicians, they all know it is happening there. But problem is they are also involved. In fact, forget about their involvement. It is the fraudsters, these young guys who are involved in all these kind of frauds. They are even contesting elections there. So what? How to deal with this problem? So it's a big issue. We'll leave it at that. Our point is almost 80% of the calls that you receive are originated from Jamtara. So remember this name. So how this fraudster deal with you? So there are 2-3 aspects they deal with you. They will excite you. Basically, I would say that they will put something or you will become greedy. So they will say, sir, आपको एक लॉटरी लगा है, आप अपना कार्ड डिटेल दे दीजिए और आपका बैंक अकाउंट डिटेल दे दीजिए, मैं आपको पैसा भेजता हूँ, आप OTP शेयर कर दीजिए. So that kind of they will do, and you will become greedy. I mean, if they speak in such a language that you will have to believe them. They will make you believe them. So that is how they deal with it. And if there's something like that, then you'll think if somebody is giving you some benefit without you doing anything, so you'll naturally believe in that person. You'll trust that person, and they will softly ask you, sir, आपका account number दे दीजिए, and you'll share it. But you have to think, why you? We have 130 crore people, 1.3 billion people. So all among them, they are called you, and they are offering you a lottery. So KBC lottery. So this is the new kind of lottery that the Geo Tower. So why you? You don't even own a land, or you don't even have a building, and still you get this SMS, and you get lured. So think about it and don't share any detail on such fraud calls. So next thing they use is the fear factor. So here somebody will call and say, sir, I am calling from so and so bank, and your credit card or debit card will be blocked if you don't provide something detailed. So here is one SMS which was received by one of my colleagues, and she was asked to share her she was directly threatened that if you don't call on these numbers and apply for a new EVM chip card or activate it, your card will be blocked. So she did call her bank, not the mobile, the message sender. She did call her bank. So bank told her it's a fraud. Don't call anybody. Nothing is going to happen to your card. I mean, it's quite simple. And what is more interesting in all these matters is the fraudsters share some details of the customer. I mean, if they are calling you, so they will share that, sir, you have account in this so and so bank, and this is your account number, this is your card number, this is the last 4 digits of card. They get all this data is available in dark net, and it's available for a fee. Anybody can go and buy that data, but since we are not dealing in that kind of thing, so we may not get the access, but these guys have access to everything that is available free, and that is available for a cost on the dark web. So what you have to do, again, think, why you, and why not someone else? Why not your neighbor? Why you? So if you can answer that, why you, then don't be afraid of anything. Nobody is going to close down your account or doing anything to your account. Nobody does that. Nobody has the time doing that. So third type of fraud, it has become very visible nowadays. It's rising every day. So in this matter, what happens is let's say the fraudster make a blind call or reach users through social media. So if you had posted some query on social media, like say you have some issue with a bank and you had posted a query on Twitter. So they will check it and they will call back you, because they will get your number and other details from the Twitter or Facebook thing, and they will call you and they will say, okay, sir, I am calling from so and so bank and you are is this query. So you just download this app, and after downloading, they can see your screen, entire screen they can see on their laptop or their mobile, and it's a screen sharing kind of thing. They will see entire details. Otherwise, they will ask you to hold your plastic card in front of the camera, and they can take the pictures of this your credit card, debit card, and the CVV and other things. And at the same time, they will ask you to share the OTP. And they will say that, sir, ये OTP आपने दिया तो आपका ये कार्ड का जो भी इशू है ना, वो आपका इशू सॉल्व हो जाएगा. And so just for the confirmation, I need your OTP, and you will share that OTP. At the moment you share the OTP, they will siphon off your money and vanish. So again, here, don't download or install any app on your mobile if somebody is telling you to do so. Don't do that. Be careful. Be very careful. Kind of fraud, I mean, it has started from 2016 onward, that the KYC fraud. So almost everybody has got this kind of mail that your ATM account is going to expire and you don't submit the. I mean, it's interesting. Just to see. One friend of mine came to me and he said, "अरे यार ऐसा ऐसा message आया अभी डॉक्टर ये submit कहाँ करना है, किसको भेजना है?" So I said, "Okay, cool down. To rush." I asked him whether he has an account in Paytm. He said, "नहीं मेरे पास नहीं है." I said, "Then why you're worried?" But this can happen with people. Many people. He might not have Paytm, but he might have some other mobile rate or mobile app. So he got worried. So here the fraudster used this SMS short, and it took that looks similar to the original brand in attempt to fool customers, and we end up sharing the data in if you call that. But remember, no bank or payment gateway or payment service provider offers the option to get KYC over a phone call. So do not share any confidential information like your name, date of birth, email ID, UPI details, that the login and password, card number, expiry date, PIN, or OTP with anyone. If you are asked for such details, if you think that the person is really genuine and you think so, I'm not sure about that, but if you feel that the person really is from your bank, then I'm to send an email. And don't share the email. Ask him, you have all my details in your bank account, bank record, so send me an email about all these things. I'll take care of it. So next fraud is online shopping fraud. So just watch this. I mean, this Realme 6 handset, this website is offering it at just 7,000 rupees when the original cost of this mobile set. It's a newly launched mobile, so it's cost some 15,000 rupees onward. At the same time, if you take this website, the new arrival page, so there is a sample text that's in gibberish language, and it's a description they had used. And the best part of this website is this. They say, we are delivering only in Shivaganga, but you can order from anywhere in the world. So what would happen with your order? You can only guess. Your guess is as best as mine. This is again a new kind of messages that being circulated on WhatsApp. I mean, I use common sense. I mean, see, Jio offer 2020 में मुकेश अंबानी दुनिया के छठे से बड़े धनी व्यक्ति बनने की खुशी में नीता अंबानी ने डेटा फ्री रिच भी देने का वादा किया. Why? I mean, if Mukesh Ambani has become the richest person, then he will announce that bonanza. Na? Why his wife has to do that? And that too for Jio. And the last line is funny. I mean, see, आपके पास अगर जियो सिम नहीं है तो आप किसी दो या घर में किसी जियो सिम को रिचार्ज करें. What is this? So it's all crap. And when I search on this website, as I told you earlier, if you remember that no short URLs for financial transactions. So here you will short URL is used. It is used to hide the original URL. So when I clicked on, after taking due precautions, I checked it, and it turned out that it is a other website, the t-gift.xyz, that's the real website behind this message, and now it is banned. And it has no relation whatsoever with either Jio or Reliance or even the Ambani family. Earlier we did research on this kind of messages. So when we clicked on these messages, there was other window opening, and it collected all our data, all personal data, and it will say that thank you for sharing your data. Now to get your desired mobile, you download all these apps, and it's all Chinese apps. You load and install all these apps and use it for some more days, and then after some days you can come back and again place your order. Who need that? don't do that. It's all bakwas. So it's never going to materialize. They will just collect your data and they will just go off. This is the social media frauds. So these are the all news reports. And here in first report that she pretending to be from Canada. So she told that this retired gentleman from Western that I am from UK and I got a new home and I'm buying so and so. So you just send me money and just courier. She was sending him some gift. So just by the courier or for the customs duty, she took money from him and it went on till this gentleman realizes that he had lost 27 rupees. So the case is going on. In other cases, there are social media profile, the social media frauds, and the police and the other investigation and getting agencies are now probing all these matters. So don't believe in social media, especially don't believe in social media, especially for the financial matters. OTP, that's the one passcode. So here also this, I mean, these examples are news reports. It's an actual news report. Actually, these cases are happened, and in case why the fraud had taken place is the persons affected victims had shared the OTP. So here the user will say that he will call you and he will ask for your OTP, username, password, PIN name, and CVV number or any other credential. But remember, OTP is your last line of protection. The moment you share OTP, your money is gone. There is no trace of that money. So, and at the same time, remember, no bank or other financial institutions or payment gateway or wallet, they will never call you and ask for the OTP. So unless and until you give your OTP to anybody, you share it over the phone, your money is protected. You are protected. So in short, register your mobile and email IDs with your bank. Do not store any banking data in your mobile, email, or wallets. Use only verified, secure, and trusted website that should have HTTPS. Avoid banking using mobile from a public, open, or free Wi-Fi networks. Change your banking password and that your card, that the debit, ATM, or credit card pins regularly. If you think that there is some mishap happened in your card, so immediately block that card, inform to the bank. And never download, install screen sharing apps such as Screenshare, Desk, or TeamViewer. Point is, don't let anyone score against you. And how you do that is, never share your login credentials, password, PIN, OTP, CVV, or your PIN with anyone. So you'll say that, okay, I had done all precautions, I had done everything possible, but still there are some things that go wrong. So RBI has just announced that introduction of an online dispute resolution system for resolving customer disputes and grievances pertaining to digital payments. So this will be a system-driven and rule-based mechanism with zero or minimum manual intervention. So if you your complaint through this ODR, that online dispute resolution mechanism, so it will be automatically handled without any human interference. So if you complain, then it will automatically go to the next level. Then from there, it will go to the concerned authority or bank or this, and it will come back to you. So these things will happen. I think there are some people who are raising hands. I will request everybody to wait. Please let me finish my presentation. We'll do the question and answer later on. Okay. So I was talking about this ODR. So ODR, that the online dispute resolution mechanism, will be ready by 1st of January, and RBI has given the orders about that. So for the bank issues, so as per RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, so Reserve Bank of India has mandated 3-tier system. Otherwise, this complaint get rejected. So what is this 3-tier system? So first, lodge a complaint in writing with the concerned branch. Concerned branch means the branch where you have your account, bank account, or if it is a wallet, then the wallet company, or if it is a card, then the card issuer. And when you are filing this complaint, when you are submitting in writing, then make sure that you get an acknowledgement. If you are sending an email, then make sure that you get an read acknowledgement from the concerned authority. And if you are submitting in a hard copy, then make sure that the hard copy is stamped and dated and signed by the authorized bank officer. Next part comes, if your complaint or your grievance is not redressed at the branch level. So if they are unable to resolve your query, then you can approach the nodal officer of the bank, and all the contact details of all nodal officers of all the banks are available on their respective websites. So you can go and check the details of these people, their email IDs, contact number, and addresses, and you can submit your complaint to these people. So they will take care of your complaint. Now the third part, if at all there is no first you didn't get response from the bank, the branch, then you approach the nodal officer, and there you didn't get any response. So in these cases, so in 30 days after filing your first complaint, you can approach the banking ombudsman. So banking ombudsman is the RBI banking ombudsman, and the ombudsman will take care of this. So how to file complaint to the banking ombudsman? But before that, let me share one more issue, that the ATM related issues, the ATM frauds. So here also you'll have to file the written complaint, but what happens is sometimes we don't use our own bank's ATM and we try to withdraw money from some other bank ATM. So in these manners, you have to, if some issue or you didn't get the money or something happened and the transaction was unsuccessful, or you think some fraud has taken place. So in this matter, you have to file complaints with both the ATM, which is owned by the particular bank. Let's say if you are using an ICICI Bank's ATM, where incidents happened, and you are a customer of SBI. So you have to file your complaint with both the banks. And after filing the complaint, as I said earlier, you take the receipt, the acknowledgement. And same again here also, if your complaint is not resolved by the branch level itself or the bank level itself, then you can within 30 days, then you can file a complaint to the banking ombudsman. There is one more that the digital transaction also, there is one more ombudsman. At this, for this ATM related fraud, let's say you have done some, there was some fraud on your card. Somebody has withdrawn some money from your ATM and without your permission, or maybe the card is with you or somebody has used that duplicate card and withdrawn money. So in these matters, or in any case that's related with the ATM fraud, so you request your bank or the police station, the nearest police station, preserve the CCTV footage or the video footage, and give them the approximate time that you received the alert, or approximate time when this incident would have possibly in place. So that way they will preserve the video footage, and it will help them to identify the culprit, who is the fraudster behind all these things. So you can file these complaints online also. Many banks coming out with their own customer grievances redressal system. So here I am sharing an example of State Bank of India. So they have their own portal. So on their portal, they are accepting online complaint forms. So here you can file complaint about all these ATM related issues or any unauthorized transaction kind of thing. So after filing all these complaints and sharing the documents like the photocopy of your bank passbook or as identity proof or the bank statement, and any other document receipt in support of your claim, and like ATM receipts or the SMS photocopy or the screenshots of your dealing, so that you can attach and that you can submit on this online form. After submitting all the forms, you will response shortly by SMS or an email on your officially registered mobile number or officially registered email. And then you can again go to website and check the status of your complaint, or you can call that toll-free number of this bank, SBI, and you can make inquiry about your case status, what is happening in that case. RBI launched its own complaint management system, that is cms.rbi.org.in. So here you can file complaints against banks, non-banking financial companies, that is NBFCs, or payment systems can be escalated to this system. You can also use RBI's app, and there also you can use this CMS facility, that's a complaint management system. So this complaint management system provides a single window platform. It's a single window platform for fast and easy online filing. So you don't need to go from file your complaint this place and that place. This is a single, you can file your entire complaint. So important part here is all complaints that you are filing here are directed to the appropriate office of the RBI Ombudsman or regional offices of RBI. So there are, as you may be knowing, that there are almost 22 offices of RBI Ombudsman across the country, and it will go to the appropriate ombudsman. Now we come to the banking ombudsman part. So banking ombudsman must be approached only 30 days after failing to hear from the bank. So 30 days from filing your first complaint, lodging your first complaint. If you don't hear from the bank or nodal officer, then you can go to the banking ombudsman. But so most important part here for everybody to check is, so whether the complaint comes under the jurisdiction of ombudsman. First thing, there are 12 banking ombudsman, so you have to check which ombudsman has the jurisdiction in your place. Then whether what our banking ombudsman check is whether the consumer has first tried to approaching the bank and tried to resolve the complaint itself at the bank level or the nodal officer level. If you have not done that, then your complaint will get rejected, straightway rejected. And thirdly, the time limit. So as I you can file complaint only in 30 days after failing to get any reply from the bank. So if you file before that, then the banking ombudsman will raise your complaint. So, but at the same time, you have time from 30 days to 1 year to file complaint to the banking ombudsman. So banking ombudsman, and you can file it online. You can send an email to the banking ombudsman. I had given the URL where you can find all the EDs of the banking ombudsman. At the same time, this sample form of banking ombudsman, although it's not mandatory, you can even write full application or simply draft anything, and you can send it to the ombudsman. It will be taken as a complaint. But make sure you attach the required documents to the banking ombudsman. So you need following documents. First, your stamped acknowledgement of your complaint from bank with the complaint. So photocopy of your bank passbook or identity proof. The first part why you need the stamped acknowledgement is that it establishes that you had approached the bank and your complaint got rejected. So the photocopy of reminder, if you see the complaint to the nodal officer, then photocopy of the reply, if any. I mean, if the bank has replied and you are not satisfied, then also you can file a complaint, but you have to ask the bank's response to this. So all other documents that you can submit with your claim. But remember, so large number of complaints, I mean, we are getting from the banking ombudsman report, the RBI report, everything, every report says that large number of complaints, consumer complaints get rejected at this stage simply because the consumer is not aware of some of the conditions. So what are the conditions? So basically the ombudsman will see that whether it's already handled this complaint before. You had already approached ombudsman and you're again filing the complaint, it will straightway get rejected. It will not be entertained. Second part, banking, for approaching the banking ombudsman, you have to make sure that you have not filed the case with any tribunal, court of law, or any consumer court or consumer forum. If it is filed, then the ombudsman will not touch the complaint. Again, if there is any decision taken on your complaint, any tribunal or court of law or consumer commission, then also the ombudsman will not enter your complaint. It will reject your complaint. So this you have to be very careful. But at the same time, if complaint is rejected by the banking ombudsman, it doesn't mean the end. Even if your complaint legitimate, maintainable complaint, even if it is rejected by the banking ombudsman, you can always file appeal. And to file an appeal, the deputy governor of the deputy governor of the RBI is the concerned authority in such matters. He can take up these cases and he can decide on these matters. Also remember that while dealing with your complaint, it is not required that the banking ombudsman will call you for an hearing. It's not the procedure. So that is why I am insisting that you make sure that you submit these documents properly. So unless you have submitted all these proper documents, the banking ombudsman will completely be dependent on what you are submitting. So you have not submitted some document or there is lacuna some in your filing, then the complaint may get rejected. So be careful about these documents. So OTP related fraud. As I told you, OTP is your last defense. So the moment you share OTP, your money is gone. So if something happens with you, your money has gone due to the OTP related thing. So you have to file a dispute form with your branch, visit your branch and file a dispute form within 3 days. And the banks are asked to credit the disputed amount in your account if you are reporting within 3 days. If this does not happen, then you can approach nearest police station and submit a complaint for OTP related fraud against the branch manager. and you can mention in the print that the OTP was not received and yet money was siphoned from your account. I mean, if it is true, if you aren't already, if you are truly not received the OTP, then only you can file this complaint. You have received the OTP and then, and if you try to file a complaint, it will get rejected by the police also. So if you are not received OTP and yet there is some fraud happened in your account, your money has gone. So in case, you can go to the police station, file this complaint, and in that complaint mentioned about the fraud. You have to file the complaint against the branch manager and give a copy of your complaint. It is a simple complaint, simple application. It's not an FIR, it's a complaint. So give the copy of your complaint to the branch level also. And at the same time, you can file complaint with cybercrime branch of police as well. And these OTP related fraud tips, these are shared by very senior retired officer who had dealt with all these cases, and he's still dealing with, I mean, as a consultant, he's dealing with this kind of cases every day. So these are the tips by him. So you can also file complaints with other thing. You got SMS or some other fraud or forgery happened, somebody has impersonated your email ID or something, then all this online or digital fraud matters. You can file. Somebody has impersonated your even social media profile, or somebody is impersonating or trying to fool people with any of your Twitter handle or Facebook. They had created your page or your profile or any other media. So you can file a complaint to the National Cybercrime Reporting Portal. So it's a cybercrime.gov.in. So here you can go and file your complaint there. If it is a financial fraud and you have tried approaching all the forums, so this is the forum where you can go if it is a cyber related with the cybercrime. So under the Information Technology Act, anybody who has been duped or cheated in a cybercrime manner, so he can approach the state IT secretary, any state's IT secretary. So let's say Maharashtra IT secretary. So the Maharashtra IT secretary under this act is the adjudicating officer for this type of cases. He will call for the hearing. If you file a complaint to him, you can call for the hearing. He will get all the evidence and he can deal with this case, and his order will be bound on the parties because he has the status of a civil code. And you can take up this that has a damage value up to rupees 5 crore rupees to the IT secretary. At the same time, you can also file it in the local district commission or state district commission. Now they are called as commission. They are not the forums. Earlier we used to call them forums, but now it is a district commission. Everywhere commission level. So you may be aware that for approaching the district commission, the claim value has to be up to 1 rupee. So any fraud that happened in your account or your money siphoned off, the bank is not resolving the complaint. So up to an amount of 1 crore rupees, you can go to your local district consumer commission. If the value is, if your claim value is 1 crore to 10 crore, then you can go to the state consumer commission. And if the value is more than 10 crore, then you can go to the National Consumer Redressal Forum. So that is all I have. But remember, digital technology is a huge boom, but for using it correctly, full of pitfalls. So you need to navigate very carefully to avoid mishaps, and for the rules and regulations, what I told you, be cautious, be alert, be safe.